Hey everybody, sorry if you can hear me chewing, I'm really hungry. We'll get started in just a minute. Hey everybody, giving it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, we have a lot of people like still jumping on, which is why I'm pausing. Sorry, I know everyone else hates the 3 minutes of silence as much as I do, so. Okay, folks, we're gonna get this party started. Welcome to another brokerage call. Thanks for making it. Thank you to so many of you who have your cameras on. It makes me so happy when your cameras are on. So thanks and hello. Yeah, we have had some new folks join us on this brokerage call. So I'm gonna first say a shout out to Mark Sprout, who's one of our new agents, just transferred here from Tucker. Welcome, Mark. I won't make you say anything unless you don't want to. Oh, yay, there we go. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to have you here. And then I wanted to introduce you to our fabulous new community manager. Her name is GiGi West. GiGi, can you give a little intro about yourself?
Well, thank you for that, Rosie. Hi, everyone. My name is GiGi West, and my first day was this Monday. Had a very fun, unique first day with the team. Rosie is a fantastic tour guide on rivers, so that's a secret thing that she can do, and it was so much fun. But yes, I am an Ohioan, born and raised, and I moved to Indy upon graduation. I earned my degree in accounting, and so far my background has been in finance and internal audit. But I just really discovered I enjoyed people and working and serving. And through a turn of events, I met Rex, and he kind of told me about his company. And I said, this is too good to be true. Just everything I'd heard about it and the people I met, I thoroughly enjoyed the culture that they curate and the mission that this company stands for. So very thankful for this opportunity to work with this team, for all of you. I got to meet a couple. Hi, Silva. I recognize you and a couple others. But yes, looking forward to meet everyone else and serving you.
So good. Thanks, GiGi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Guys, if you are in the office anytime soon, stop by and say hi to GiGi. She is fantastic and will absolutely make your day. So she'll be working the front desk most mornings, and then be sitting like just off to the side of the front desk in the afternoon. So come say hi. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mark Nottingham for the rest of this call. Adios. I'm done being a freaking weirdo from now on.
Thanks, Rosie. Not at all. Morning, everybody. Good to see or talk to all of you. I was just thinking today, I think it's been almost exactly 6 months since the first brokerage Zoom call that we had, which was right in the middle of the, like, all the unknowns, and the world felt like it was changing super fast. And we said, hey, we should probably try to get together virtually just to talk about this. And gosh, all the anxieties that people were feeling in the middle of March. Like, what in the world is our business going to look like? And I've tried to do this a couple times, but I think it's just really healthy to say 6 months later, while I'm sure many of our friends and family and neighbors have experienced negative outcomes, our industry and company and employees and realtors as a whole have just a ton to be grateful for. The fact that our industry and our company specifically were able to just keep right on going. And really, honestly, with 6 months of hindsight, what looks like what ended up happening in our industry is about 1 out of every 5 transactions that would have taken place in April or May got pushed into July and August. Like, that's, if you're looking at year over year, that's really what happened. And that now, by the end of September, our market year to date will be like back to normal, which is like maybe even like alarming, but in a good way. And I don't want to lose sight of that as a company or an industry. That's just a lot to be grateful for, and we don't want to take that for granted. I'm sure if we asked for examples, all of you have someone who is very close to you whose work has been very negatively impacted. Their revenue, or they've been furloughed, or they've been laid off, or the business they worked for has shut down permanently. I mean, there's all those sorts of things that are happening all over the place. So 6 months later, felt like a good opportunity to say that again. Lots to be grateful for. Springing off of that, one of the things that has happened in 2020 that is really kind of hard to gauge is our normal seasonal cycles in the industry have gotten thrown off, right? So there's really a fairly predictable rhythm of transaction volume in our industry. And it's not always what people think. The one kind of like the common perception is that the real estate market is busy in the spring. That is true. The real estate market is busy in the spring. March, April, May are always going to be really busy months. Safe assumption. There's generally an assumption that that's the only busy period, and that kind of opposite that period in the calendar year is really slow, where the market's activity kind of starts to separate from what perception is that July and August, that 60-day period tends to be one of the most predictably slow periods of time. People assume the summer is okay. Summer is actually very slow most of the time, particularly the second half of the summer. We normally see an uptick in activity between Labor Day and Thanksgiving. So September and October can actually be fairly busy months. We see a predictable downturn between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And then January and February are a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of weather. But in most measures, January and February are actually fairly busy. I say in most measures, like you look at online search activity, it spikes really high in January. If you see, I mean, you all know Indiana weather and how fickle Indiana weather is. And if you end up like the third weekend in January happens to be mild temperatures and it hits like the high 40s or low 50s, it tends to actually be a very busy weekend. So I'm kind of setting the stage here to talk about the last 4 months of the year. But my point there is that there are actually some pretty predictable rhythms. Well, for a lot of 2020, those have kind of just been thrown out the window. And you can actually see that most clearly in August and September. So like as a brokerage, we pended and closed way more transactions in August than we quote unquote should have. And I don't mean because we've grown, we have grown. So we knew we would close more this August than last August because we've grown a lot. But just proportionately to the rest of the year, August and September were actually very busy because of that push, right? So most of us were probably doing some form of business in August and September that would have been earlier in the year had COVID not happened. I think we're approaching a time of year where we might have more, like from here in, this might be a more normal seasonal cycle in terms of transaction count, which would be September and October, not bad, not crazy busy like the spring, but not super slow like August or December tend to be, that we'd come into kind of a normal rhythm. But there is a little bit of like, well, all bets are off with 2020 because it just feels like such a weird year to try to predict. But if I had to guess, I would say September and October will feel normal, and then November and December will follow a typical pattern, which is the amount of time you spend with clients, like face-to-face with clients, listing presentations, closings, buyer intakes, showings, open houses, all 5 of those things that you do where you're normally face-to-face with a client, you're probably not going to do nearly as many of those in November and December as you typically do. Okay. That's one of the safer bets in real estate. In January, we'll probably have a call where I'll say, guys, remember in September when I said that about November and December and it turned out to be totally wrong because 2020 is weird? Acknowledging that could happen. So I'm introing this to say I'm working off of that assumption that in November and December, you will have mental and emotional energy. You will have a margin of mental and emotional energy that you don't at other times of year. So that's kind of assumption number one. And that in addition to the mental and emotional energy, you will have time that you don't have at other points in the year. And what I want to encourage you to do to utilize that time is to plan it now. So and guys, I'm guilty of this. This is, I'm like preaching to myself here a little bit. If I'm preaching to somebody, it's to me. What often happens is that can you guys hear me okay? I'm getting an unstable internet connection. Notice. Cool.
You cut out for a second, but you're good now.
I'm sure it was not important. What oftentimes happens, and this is just the reality of our industry, right, is that agents will do quite a few transactions in September and October. It's that like push before the winter, after school starts, you're kind of busy, and you don't think about the downtime until it's sitting on your desk. It's a human reality. We're not generally good at thinking about downtime in advance, even though there's really good evidence to say all of us will experience at least 30 days. At some point in the second half of the year, it's a very safe, it doesn't matter how much real estate you're selling. This is true of $15 million producers, okay? At some point in the second half of the year, you're probably going to experience a 30-day period where you have more time, mental, and emotional energy than you're used to. But we don't tend to think about it until it's there. almost even sometimes in hindsight. Like you don't even realize that you have the added energy until you're 20 days into the 30 days and you're like, huh, I haven't done many showings recently and my listings are slow and I haven't done a listing point in a while. I'm talking to a lot of people via text or phone calls about getting together with them in January, but I have all this mental, emotional energy. And so I think our human tendency is not to think about it in advance. And I'm going to challenge you to say, my challenge is don't do that. Don't let yourself waste the 30 days. And I think we all tend to do that. And if you find yourself realizing in the middle of the 30 days, like, oh, this is the slow stretch. It's not that you can't use the time like at that realization, but I think you have lost your best opportunity to use that time. So I'm beating a horse dead here, but if you don't plan that time in advance, you can still use it, but you will have lost your best opportunity to use that time. That's where I'm going to stop being prescriptive. So my prescriptive comment is assume that it's coming, be intentional about it now, don't waste it. Where I'm going to transition from being prescriptive to suggestive is to say, I have a good idea for what you can use that extra time, mental and emotional energy for when that 30-day stretch comes. And I think this should be a part of our annual rhythm as realtors because we know it will happen in the second half of the year. And it's client engagement. That I think this is the ideal time of year to engage with your network. It's not the only time of year. I don't think it works to say, oh, I engage with my network for the month of November. Well, you're missing out on a lot of other good opportunities to engage with your network through the year. But you know you're going to have this time, again, mental, emotional energy and added time. So be intentional with it and do things that are really valuable but require advanced planning. So if you've got like something to jot down some notes on, I'm going to give you a couple specific strategies and things to think about kind of at like a high level. I'm going to give you some examples of what me and my team do during this time of year. And again, this isn't meant to be prescriptive. So I'm not going to suggest, John, you're the first agent that I see on the call. I'm not going to say, yeah, John Gehring should do exactly what I do or my team does. Probably not, because it has to be natural to John. And if it doesn't feel natural and authentic to John, it's probably not going to work. But the example might help to jog his mind in thinking about how can I be intentional with my network of people. Okay. So I'm going to start high level and say, these are the things that I think are true of all of us. And then I'll give some examples of what my team does. So first thing I would write down is these 3 tiers. And I apologize because at least I'm looking here, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 of you on the call have heard this speech from me more than one time, and you're going to hear it again. And guys, it's not that complex, but I need somebody to keep like beating me over the head with this, so I don't feel guilty about beating you guys over the head with this. 3 groups of people. Group number 1, between 10 and 20, who will be advocates for your business. So you have to start by defining these groups. Between 10 and 20 people who you likely have a good relationship with. Maybe you've known them for a long time. You could be related to them, neighbors. Very recent clients are probably in this list. Anybody that you've worked with really recently and closed a transaction. But somewhere between 10 and 20, no magic number, but what I'm going to suggest you do with this group of people you can't do this with 50 people, right? So this first thing, the first bullet point is define a group of between 10 and 20 people that you believe would be advocates for your business. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is define the group of people who are not necessarily your best advocates, and they may not be your closest contacts, but they're legitimately in your sphere of influence. For some of you, this might be 50. For some of you, this could be as many as 300 people. I like my own personal list. I know some peers of mine in the industry that maintain a list of about 300 people. So that maybe that's kind of on the high end. This is probably not like your Facebook friends list, right? That's going to be in the third category. But somewhere in that 300 people where you know their names, they know your name, you have some form of maybe at least second degree connection to them. They probably know what you do for a living. They may or may not. But defining that list. So a lot of you have these lists, but not down on paper. So task number one, there's no better time to do it than in the predictable 30-day slowdown when you have the extra time and energy. Define the lists. Put them onto a piece of paper, put them onto a spreadsheet, Google, Excel, whatever you want to use. This doesn't have to be like a complicated CRM, right? You don't have to use Salesforce to do this. Start by putting them down, okay? That's number one. Number two, so number three is a group of people with whom you have some competitive advantage, okay? You may or may not know them. So that's why they're not in that list of 300. If somebody's on that list of 300 and they know you by name, you already have a competitive advantage with them because they know who you are. Doesn't guarantee you the business, but you have an advantage. The third category, a really good example of this might be they own a home in a neighborhood that you've lived in for 10 years and have done some real estate business in. Whether that person knows you or not, you have a competitive advantage with them. So by competitive advantage, I mean, if you can get in front of them as a realtor when they have a need to do a real estate transaction, there's something that's true of you that wouldn't be true of all your competition that would give you an advantage. So that's a competitive advantage, some set of knowledge, some relationship, something you have in common with that person. Angelica's not on the call today. She and I were talking about this recently. I don't think she would care about me sharing this. Angelica has worked as a nurse for several years, still actually works as a nurse, and I think does a very nice job of appropriately developing business in that community. I see Zach Canada is here on the call. Zach was I'll say long time. I actually don't know how long you worked at Eli Lilly, Zach, but Zach developed a lot of relationships there. And I think really even you could say knows a language, knows a culture, knows a language. So let's just be honest. That's a competitive advantage for Zach. For someone that works at Eli Lilly, it's likely that they could both name 10 people that they have as mutual friends. Thank you, Zach. Zach worked at Lilly for 5 years. I'm going to call that longtime employee. Way to go. Much longer than average for a millennial, Zach. Good work. So these three categories, the starting point of what I'm going to suggest you do in this predictable 30-day slowdown is define those three lists of people for yourself. Doesn't matter who's on it. There's not a magic number. Sometimes you accomplish the most by just starting the task. Write down a list of advocates, write down the network, and then define the groups of people that are in that third category. Who do I think I have a competitive advantage with, and what's that advantage? And we can't do this on this call, but I will offer and say, if you don't think you have a network or you don't think you have a competitive advantage, if you're really struggling to come up with who's in categories 2 and 3, call me, because I guarantee you have a competitive advantage of some kind. I guarantee it. It may not be with 1,000 people. It might be with 20, but you have a competitive advantage with somebody. So starting point is in the slowdown, define those 3 categories. I'm going to pivot and talk about then what do you do? So now I have all these names or categories of people on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet or something. So what you do with that during this time of year, my suggestion is be very intentional about connecting with them. And one of the horses that I regularly beat dead is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, or many other resources that kind of teach a similar mindset. The traditional understanding of connecting with those people, y'all, maybe we would use the term networking. I've listened to or read a lot recently that a lot of business coaches are suggesting that you even just stop using the word networking. Because I think what's meant by networking, John, I'm going to pick on you. John he's the first realtor on the call, so I'm just going to keep picking on John. What is meant traditionally by networking is that John and I would both go to an event hoping to get something from someone at the event. That I'm coming in with my starting point as John has real estate business. So I'm pretending John's not a realtor. John's probably an architect in this scenario. That's a bad example. John sells life insurance. That's what you do, John. John sells life insurance and I'm a real estate broker. John might need to sell his house and I'm hoping to meet him so that I can get that listing. That the traditional understanding of networking is we're all here looking for something for ourselves and maybe we trade. I'm not anti-networking. There's no ethical problem with networking. I think the reason that a lot of authors and coaches are suggesting you not use that word is the word's kind of gotten burnt out. Because if everybody's in a room looking for something for themselves, does anybody really want to be in that room? Not very many of them. And so they kind of has this negative connotation now, but what I'm going to suggest, what I mean by figure out a way to appropriately connect with these people, you have to add value. Your goal is to give them something that they want. I'm listening to a book right now called Giftology. I had actually finished it. I spent a couple hours in the car last week and I listened to it. It probably took two and a half hours total. If any of you are book listeners, I would recommend it. It's a little cheesy. What book in that category is not? Whatever, get over it. It's cheesy. It can be helpful. Listen to Giftology. This is fascinating science behind being an expert gift giver. Holy cow, if there's a profession where that would be more valuable than ours, I don't know what it is. That is a very valuable skill in our industry. And he addresses this, and you guys hear me acknowledge this sometimes, like, hey, I get it. I'm talking about business development right now, and there's that feeling of like, wait, you said I shouldn't be trying to get something out of this, but are you talking about the science of gift giving as a means to develop business? That feels manipulative. You're trying to get something. Like, I get it. I think the book does a really good job of addressing that. I think How to Win Friends and Influence People does a good job of addressing that. The point is, the world doesn't care about you. The world cares about itself. And if you align yourself to recognizing, if I care about other people and I'm curious about them and I want to get to know them and what they value and appreciate, if I give them what they value and appreciate, eventually that comes full circle. That is the way the world works. That's the argument behind both of those books. And that's what I'm going to suggest you can do in this time of year where you have more space and time to be intentional about connecting with these groups of people. When you connect with them, if it is an explicit, direct solicitation of business, it's very limited in how well that will work. I'm not saying it's zero, but I'm not suggesting you make a list of 10 advocates and take them all out to lunch and start by saying, hey, I really appreciate you coming here today. I'd love to know how many people you know that might be looking to buy or sell real estate next year, because I could really use the business and I feel like you'd kind of be willing to refer me to that business. It won't work. I hate to break it to you, it won't work. If you are able to take that person to lunch and find out more about them, get to know them, what makes them tick, what do they need? What business are they in? How can you help them? They have kids. What's school look like now for their kids? I thought this was a fascinating part of giftology. One of the chapters is about making the recipient a hero, that oftentimes the best gift is not for the recipient. If you have an advocate on your list and you could make that advocate a hero with their spouse or their child, you will be cemented in their mind as really, I know that. I'd never really thought about it consciously. You don't have to be an expert at all of this stuff. I think the starting point is, I know I've got extra time coming. Make the list and then start to think about, how can I connect with these people in a way that they appreciate? They're getting value. I'm providing something of value to them. If you do that, it works. I can't tell you when, I can't tell you how, but I can tell you it works. And it's really hard to do that in April. Because in April, you're going to say, I don't have the 3 hours to schedule the lunch, to do the lunch, and to be really intentional about the individualized, appreciated follow-up on the lunch. I'm going to suggest that you probably will have that time in December. You just have to be really intentional about doing it. And if you wait until December, you'll be reactive. But making the list now, and my challenge, I work with a couple agents on my team or agents here at the brokerage a little bit more individually with this. And we check in once a month on how they're doing on these lists. But to me, if you made a list of 10 to 20 advocates, and in the months of November and December, you personally connected in a way that was meaningful to that person, that person found it meaningful and they appreciated it, with every one of those 10 to 20 people. And then you did a more scalable, maybe generic, but scalable form of connection with your larger network list. So you're not going to be able to get face-to-face with every one of those people, but I can give you some examples of what we're doing. If you do those two things and you don't even get to the third category, great job. That will pay dividends for the rest of your career. And the more you do it, the more you see the payoff, the more natural it becomes. So some examples, Sarah, my team's client care hero, is on the call. Sarah is muted. Shout out to Sarah. because we couldn't do these things without Sarah. So I just want to acknowledge that for those of you who are newer in the business, who are individual agents, some of these things may not be realistic for you to pull off, but my point isn't do it the way we're doing it. Do it the way you can do it, right? So some examples. We send a little postcard. It was the cutest thing in the world. Sarah's really good at making cute things. We sent one last year that had like a pie chart that was actually a pie that said like things that we appreciate. And like, I think the little piece of pie that was cut out in the pie chart was pie, that we appreciate pie. And then the rest of the pie was you. It was a cute message, personalized. It emphasized like, yeah, it's talking about the fact that we're realtors and you're our client. We appreciate you. But it was a gift certificate for them to go to a locally owned pie shop over the holidays and pick out a pie so they pre-ordered it online and then they would go and just pick it up. So we bought them a pie, and we got lots of really good feedback on that. I stole that idea from my sister-in-law's realtor in Scottsdale, Arizona. We went there for Thanksgiving. I saw a postcard way less cute than the one Sarah made, but nonetheless effective. And she got to the point where she knows it's coming. Like literally every Thanksgiving, she knows 2 weeks prior, she's going to get the postcard from her realtor and go to Costco and get the pie. And it's magic. It totally kept that realtor front of mind with my sister-in-law for years. And so we robbed the idea. I think Sarah made it even better. We got lots of really good feedback on that. That's something that could be in that category too. It's scalable. It shows that like they feel appreciated, supports a local business. We're doing this Friday. My team has rented one of the screens at the Tibbs Drive-In. We have a couple food trucks coming. We're going to show an animated movie once it gets dark, and then we've tried to avoid using the term adult movie, but we're showing an adult movie after that, not one of those. But we'll have a couple hundred people come, and just as a way to say hi and thank you. There's no pitch. There's no like speech that's going to be a part of this. It's just a chance for us to connect with them. We're providing food and drinks and candy, and we just have fun and call it a day. Probably doesn't make sense for all of you to do that for your groups of 1 or 200 people, but just the creativity and the ability to get connected to them in a scalable way to show appreciation. And then we really do try to connect with people at a one-on-one level this time of year. For me, it's not a big secret. I really enjoy playing golf. And so the second half of the summer and the fall is when I tend to go through my list. I go through my network and I say, who on this list of people do I know enjoys playing golf that I haven't connected with this year? And so I try to make that happen. Doesn't work as well in November and December. And some of you hate golf. So that's going to be a terrible idea for you to do that. But there is probably something that you really enjoy doing that some of your advocates or network also enjoy doing. Yes, Silva, fantastic example for you. Plenty of people that like, hey, October is a great month to try to go on a bike ride, right? So I think there's always things you can do that if you're thinking about it now, if it's on your mind in September, you'll be able to pull it off. If it occurs to you in December to say, who's on my list and what should I do? It's going to be harder to utilize that time. And so I think this is a good annual strategy. A couple other things that we do. We have tried like a little bit more explicit real estate connected things, like sending out a year in review for someone's neighborhood. Like, hey, you bought your house with me 3 years ago in Fall Creek Place. So maybe you'd be curious to see all the transactions that took place this calendar year in Fall Creek Place. So I'll send that to you. So it's not an explicit invitation for business, but it's much more clearly associating you as a realtor, where the pie gift card doesn't do that as much. I think you try to find a balance between those things. But if you're going to make it explicitly connected to real estate, try your hardest to make it something that they care about. And guys, I've been guilty of this, but I hate to break it to you. Your client doesn't care about how many transactions you did this year. They might care about the houses that sold in their neighborhood. So you can do real estate specific stuff, but yeah, don't take any of that as prescriptive. What I want to be prescriptive is you will have a slow season. Don't freak out. Very normal. The agent next to you that sold $15 million this year is going to have a slow season too. Utilize it by recognizing that it's coming and be intentional with the time, and start now by making those lists. I'm of the philosophy that if you just open the spreadsheet and start writing names, I don't know how long it's going to take you to figure it out or perfect it, or how long it's going to take for it to pay off. But guys, I really believe this. If you open the spreadsheet and start writing down names, you just made money doing that.
Do you mind if I jump in?
No, my goal was 1140. If you hadn't interrupted
Perfect.
me, Rosie, I think I would have hit 1140.
Sorry. Guys, Jess Martin couldn't make it on the call today, but something that she mentioned that she likes to do in the downtime as well are two things. One is going back through your transactions for the year and seeing which agents that you liked to work with, and asking them out for coffee or drinks or lunch, just to build relationships with them. I think we all know that Indy is a super small world and you're probably going to have a transaction with them again. So the more agents that you have who are like easy to work with, you have like an established relationship with them, the better that's going to be for you in the long run. And then the other thing that Jess does and that we really promote as a brokerage is goal setting for the next year as well. And I think that's not just about your real estate business either. That's about your personal life too. I think you are a whole human being with lots of different aspects of your life. And goals are for all aspects, personal and professional. So if you weren't with us last year, we will have the chief yoga officer at my yoga studio. Her name's Shannon Brosovin, comes in and leads a goal setting session for us at the end of the year. So we'll be doing that again this year. Hopefully we can do it in person, but more likely it'll be virtual. So I'll keep you posted on that, but those are two other things that you can think about in your down season as well.
Before we get off the call, one question. Silva, do you have a moving plant? Because a moment ago, there was a plant that just was kind of like doing this, like very slowly. What's going on there?
I just try to keep things entertaining.
It works. Yes. Really great.
No, just trying to give more people reason to tune in and turn on their video.
This is like reminiscent of being excited to find out what Steve Lunsford's backdrop was going to be on a given day.
Which, Steve, bring it back. I missed the backdrop. It was so funny.
Oh, he's in the car.
In the car.
Yeah, I'm on my way to North Carolina right now. That's not very entertaining.
Well, next time you're in front of your computer, we'd love to see the new backdrop.
Is there a baby in the car?
Know that it was noticed and appreciated.
Hi, baby Logan.
Oh,
God, this is like every Zoom meeting we have now. We're just like, who cares about what we're talking about? Just give us baby Logan. Oh God, she's cute. Hi, baby. Thanks, Steve.
Rosie, we good? I think that's everything.
We're good. That's everything. Now that we've had our baby Logan appearance, good to go. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good day. Oh, tomorrow, monthly agent meeting at Cottage Home Park. Be there. It's going to be amazing. Adios.